mentioning it to everyone. Brands of India is an initiative we have started where we're bringing everyone in the D2C. We're hearing so much about D2C and the space, so much of investments coming, but we were thinking that so many entrepreneurs are getting in touch to get connected to investors, to figure out how to build in this space. So we've launched Brands of India, and I hope all of you have applied. We've already got some more than 400 applicants. Please apply for 500 challenging brands from India, where we'll bring all the support possible to help you grow. And today we are joined by someone whom I really look up to and respect, and all of us in the ecosystem do, because he has been investing in this space and he's been a believer, supporter of consumer brands much before D2C brands became a buzzword. I think it's a new terminology, but he's been there investing, helping build some of the iconic brands that we know. Thank you so much, Kanwal, for joining and taking out time to talk to all of us and address as many questions we have and entrepreneurs have when it comes to the D2C space. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Shraddha. Thanks. You keep reminding me of my age with the long history of my in the space. But yeah, happy to be here and really looking forward to interacting directly with your viewers.
And if I can tell this to everyone and then have the liberty to tell this to everyone, that you talked about age, but I think you bring such a crazy energy and understanding of what's happening and what's going to happen in the space is remarkable. And we are very fortunate to have you today with us. And I want to begin with the first question. There are a lot of D2C brands. And before right now, just some time back, I was talking to Rishi Vasudev of Goat Brands. And he was saying that he's seeing a lot of interesting companies. If I had to ask you, Kanwal, specific categories, because D2C is huge, specific categories that interests you and you think that there is a huge scope of growth, what would those categories be?
Sure. So let me caveat that by saying that the biggest attraction or biggest excitement for us, and for me personally, all of us at Fireside, is that this is such an underpenetrated market of over 1 billion consumers. I mean, it's a contradiction which is almost impossible to comprehend. So if you go into any aisle in any supermarket anywhere in the world, Southeast Asia, Middle East, Europe, US, the kind of brands you see, India is not even scratching the surface. So I would say that the high level excitement for us is that every category is underpenetrated and ripe for disruption. So that's the mega opportunity. Now within that, I think the areas that we have started to see, as you know, my own history, I started out very heavily on the F&B space. So Epigamia, Paperboard, IB, Vadam Teas, these are all my early investment, Licious. And then, we started looking at personal care and beauty, which again emerged into one mega area because there are some characteristics in that space which allow it to be very digital first friendly. And now we are finding home, kitchen, fashion, appliances, everything is, getting disrupted. So, I mean, I won't choose a favorite, but one of my themes, which I really believe is need of the hour, as well as something which will become bigger and bigger, is almost the all-sweeping thought of wellness. And all of us have gone through some really difficult times with the COVID and the kind of impact it has had on our personal lives, on economies and so on. So there is a very strong consciousness about wellness, and that pervades everything: what we eat, what we put on our bodies, how we live our lives, our lifestyle, fitness. In fact, there was a study by McKinsey which talked about 6 areas that they believe fitness, wellness defines itself. So whether it's fitness, it's pharma, it's nutrition, it's sleep, it's meditation. So it's almost like becoming a way of life for all of us. So to me, anything which brings an element of wellness into our lives is the exciting part. And, we can justify that in everything we do, but, it's just huge, the opportunity right now.
Yeah. And Kanwal, if we have to, talk about the customer segment, because again, as you mentioned, India is such a huge, vast country with so many of us. if you have to say that from a venture standpoint, which customer segment would be attractive? Is it going to be mass? Is it premium? Which category? Like, how do you look at the customer segment?
So even that, Shraddha, honestly has evolved literally over the last few years. So when we started Fireside, our intuition was urban millennials. So, we said these are young people, they have overall level of affluence, so mass premium would be a very attractive space to target. They are very well connected to the global trends. They are digitally savvy. So that would be the core audience that our brands will target. And that continues to be so. So most companies have been able to, leverage that insight. But what has happened is that COVID has stretched that boundary on both sides. On an age parameter, you will see in our own experience, you will obviously notice that people who are much older are starting to now adopt e-commerce or digital buying, more time spent on digital channels. And I'm sure your audience profile would have gotten expanded over this last few years. And that then opens up an entirely new opportunity for us. In fact, as an interesting anecdote, there is a new terminology called silvers, which have come up, and this is the what used to be called 50 plus, and now they are saying even that 40 plus is the right. So there is a whole audience out there who can now be addressed through digital channels, which you can offer them, which is relevant nutrition, you can offer them relevant personal care products, experiences, fitness, lifestyle, travel, home, and they have serious spending power. So that's an interesting example of how the opportunity is expanding. The second big area that we have started noticing is this whole Bharat opportunity, the tier 2, tier 3, even smaller towns. And that again, defines a different set of consumers, but similar aspirations, similar, desire to consume better products, more branded products. Now, once again, how do you cater to them? What kind of product, what kind of price, what kind of SKU size, all these, then aspects come into the conversation. And then, of course, one of my favorite areas, and I will see something happen in the next few years, that's my personal challenge to myself, is global brands coming out of India.
Yeah.
And that, again, is a new market, new audience, new sensibility. So it's almost expanding in every direction.
Yeah. No, something new we learned, the terminology silvers. In a country where we say young population, but what you're saying is that this segment also has seen an upsurge, and there'll be an opportunity over there. Kanwal, to all the entrepreneurs who are watching, and to everyone, please send in your questions, and we'll get it answered. To everyone watching, and entrepreneurs specifically, if they found a niche, if they found something that they want to, go and build, where do you see, and then especially now that you've seen and been a part of so many growth stories, where does the product market fit happen, and what should be the first target avenues to validate that?
So the challenge or the opportunity has not changed. It's just that the ecosystem around us has enabled it to become more accessible and more, I would say, data driven. So what we are finding is that even if you start by just launching on some of the large e-marketplace platforms, the Amazon, Flipkart, now Tatas are getting into it, Reliance is getting into it. There is a lot of feedback you can get almost instantly through reviews, ratings, how the customers are interacting with you. So you may not have individual consumer data, but you start getting feedback on your product and how it ranks or rates in the actual market context, and why consumers are buying or why they are not buying. So to me, that itself is a great start. And again, Mamaearth, Board, which are some of the large now iconic brands in making, started off just like that. Obviously, the second layer is the D2C layer, or what we call D2C, which is really selling directly on your own website through your own mobile apps, if you want to go that path. And there, what we are finding is that there is more and more, both the enablement of that ecosystem. So whether you have tools like Shopify, whether you have marketing tools, whether you have logistics, warehousing, so it's almost like becoming significantly easier to plug and play and launch your own website. And that then allows you, obviously, to understand the consumer even deeper. Buying, why are they buying, how often are they buying, what is the cost of acquisition? So to me, these are two parallel, triggers, two parallel flywheels, which you have to leverage and identify. And honestly, both of them coexist and coexist very well. And then the binding factor around them is how you are building and how you are expressing your brand. Again, one learning for me, and maybe I'm being too simplistic, and everybody knows that probably, is that don't ignore the brand. We are not selling product, we are not selling commodity, we are not selling catalogs. So how much you engage the consumer through your narratives, through your blogs, through your content, through your conversations like these, through even influencers who may not be mega influencers, but somebody who stands up and say, I like this product and I endorse it. All of that, and again, we have enough and more examples across so many brands where this has worked beautifully, is consumers should want to buy your brand, not because you have a great product, which you have to have. But what else are you offering me that I believe you and that I want to build a relationship with you? I think that is the 101 we learned as management trainees in Hindustan Lever, and that has not changed.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the right, if there is a right answer to this, but is there a certain number of people or consumers that you need to hit to say that, okay, now I found my product market fit?
So, I mean, I can share some anecdotal stuff from how we are seeing it. So, in our own learning over time, we are seeing that that 0 to 1 journey is what the product market fit probably connotes, is measured more in the sense of some revenue benchmarks that we track. So I would say that anywhere in the 20, 30 lakh, 40 lakh a month becomes a good indicator. Now, obviously, depending on your price point, depending on your unit size, depending on frequency, the number of buyers may go up and down. But at least our belief is that if a company has hit that 20, 30, 40 lakh of revenue in that range per month, then they are starting to get some core consumer audience who is believing in them and who is buying their product. And then, of course, there are so many nuances around that. So our, typical entry point from the beginning has been, in that range of, 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs, up to 50, 60 lakhs a month. We say that's the time we come in, where the entrepreneur has, done the heavy lifting, they have launched a product, they have bootstrapped themselves. And then how do you take that 40, 50 lakhs a month to 5 crores a month is really where we can add the most value. And that's really, that's the thesis that we typically work with.
Kanwal, if we have to look at the venture capital space, and today the venture capital and so many other players coming are looking at D2C space, but traditionally they haven't, right? VCs haven't looked at brands because the unicorn outcomes had not been there, right? So if mostly tech companies, which will give you consumer tech brands and whatnot, Swiggy, Zomatos, we've seen, but now VCs are looking at this space. And then yes, you are different because you've looked at this space before, much before. And I'm asking this question mostly for the entrepreneurs. When do you say that a D2C or a consumer brand is venture ready, or are all D2C brands venture ready? And how should entrepreneurs be looking at whether they should raise capital? Because consumer brands, you can go and build it without venture money also. So how should you think about this?
So I would actually flip the question saying, why do they need to be venture ready? My personal belief is that the business of consumer brands, especially if you can establish, like you called it, the product market fit, the consumer love, there is a huge, almost positive flywheel or a virtual spiral that you can get into. And you can see the growth happening significantly. I mean, again, without quoting, mega data here, the first 100 crores of revenue that a brand like Mamaearth achieved was by spending, I think their total spend was 4 or 5 crores. So now, that is extraordinary. And, our normal thumb rule is that, you need probably 25 crores of total cash to reach 100 crore revenue, which itself is a very different benchmark than, say, a more classic venture thing. So what happens is that as a venture investor or an institutional investor like us or anybody else, you are looking for big outcomes and you want to deploy larger checks of money. Not all brand needs to go down that path.
Mm.
And my own belief is that there are so many opportunities, and now you are hearing about this new Thrasio type model coming to India. So every entrepreneur who's sitting on a 10 crore brand is now getting 30, 40 crore, 50 crore. So there is a overhang of capital there. So honestly, if you ask me, the game is really about establishing that product market fit and consumer love. And then, first of all, that itself is the tipping point when venture investors or other type of investors will come in and work with you. We are also finding a lot of new type of investors wanting to engage and invest in the space. My fund, we have a lot of Indian families, some large, some not so large, who are investors with us, and they co-invest with us on a regular basis. So therefore, a lot of these families have told us saying, listen, we want to invest in private companies. We don't understand technology. So therefore, this becomes a much more natural, it's at least is easy to, have almost like a basic ability to decipher saying, okay, this product is doing well, will it do well, and how large can it become? So I would say that raising limited amount of money, proving your product market fit, and then looking for only that much money that you need to grow, to me, is the more prudent strategy for our space. And we have seen that work for us over the last 20, 30 companies that we have invested in. On the other hand, there are some companies which will break out or which will have that ability to create mega opportunities. And let's take an example with company I've been involved with from the beginning, which is Wishes. It's a huge, untapped, unorganized market. It is ripe for disruption, but it requires significant upfront investment because each city is like a business of its own. You need sourcing, processing, quality checks, distribution. So that is a business which is born to be large money, large volume.
Yeah.
That design doesn't necessarily have to work for every company. Can you build a 25, 30, 40 crore company in the next 5 years with limited amount of cash? And that money allows you then to either continue to sustain it, or there are so many different avenues of exit today. So while venture money is coming in a big way, my strong belief is that the number of entrepreneurial activity, number of new companies, number of new brands that are going to get built in India will be significantly larger. So everybody has a place under the sun. And I think that's really the exciting part.
Yeah, but Kanwal, thank you. This was a very, I would say, a very deep answer. And for every entrepreneur watching this, what you're saying is that as an entrepreneur, you have to decide, right? You have to decide how large, what scale, how fast do you want to grow? And then you have to, because not every company needs to be venture invested. It depends on your aspiration, right? And you can build a lot of 30, 40, 50, 100 crore brands without raising venture capital money.
Yeah, absolutely. And, venture capital comes with its own, baggage. So there is no free lunch. I mean, again, if you want to build something which you are passionate about, for example, there is something which, brings, we have talked a lot about circular economy in recent time. I'm passionate about sustainability. I'm passionate about building something which has all these elements, built in. Then I'm saying it might even be dangerous to go to a traditional venture investor because, there could be a divergence in terms of the direction that you want to pursue. So there are so many factors which I would want to keep in mind. And the good news is that there is, even for every form of entrepreneur who looking at building consumer brand and has the right product market fit, has the right intuition, I still believe that there is money out there and it need not always be venture funded. We have seen as much money through debt in our company as we have seen through equity, because there are so many possible opportunities to raise debt. Now you can argue banks will not give me debt because I don't have any balance sheet, because I'm burning cash. But then, there are other avenues of debt that we have figured out. Bill discounting. If you are selling on an Amazon and your buyer is on the other side, is an Appario or a Cloudtail, you can actually raise debt just to discount the invoice and recycle that money to order the next working capital stock. So there are so many possibilities.
Yeah. And that brings me to the question that, today as entrepreneurs, as startups, we are hearing about so many avenues to raise money, right? And especially with all the Thrasio kinds of models coming in. As an early stage startup, as an entrepreneur, what capabilities should you look? Because today it seems that the money is available if you're building and you've got the product market fit. What capabilities other than the money coming in should you look for, especially as a D2C brand?
In terms of investors?
Yes.
So I would say, first of all, somebody who's supportive and who's allowing you to do the heavy lifting. I've said this in so many forums, and I'll repeat it one more time, saying we are kingmakers, we are not kings. And I would certainly believe that that's the first due diligence that you need to do. And you should talk to other entrepreneurs who have taken money from those investors as the best due diligence, because entrepreneurs are very, very, aligned to helping out other entrepreneurs has been my learning. Second is, what mistakes not to make. If somebody can help me navigate just that one aspect, I think he is a great investor. Because we see that the width of entrepreneurship, we see businesses across multiple categories, multiple stages, multiple types of challenges. So at the least, what we can bring to the table is saying, don't do this because of some learning experience that we have had. And then, of course, you can add value at every stage of the business. So then you have to obviously assess, when you say, I can help you work with Amazon, it's not just, I know Amit Agarwal and, I can connect. It doesn't work like that. But, I understand what is the playbook of working with somebody like an Amazon or a Flipkart, or what is, how do you navigate some of these large players? Or, how do you get the best performance marketing out of Facebook, because I know a particular agency which has done great work, and so it's really about the network, about your thing. But I would say that is a high goal. Even the basic goal of somebody who is truly a partner, whom I can go to and ask questions which are bothering me without thinking about is he going to misinterpret it and kind of read it and then have repercussions for me. All those things are the basics. I think that's the one which can be diligenced very, very easily.
Yeah. Okay, now I want to ask you a question which is actually technically buzzing in the technical tech and startup world. Thrasio models that have come up versus investing directly in brands. And Kanwal, I have to ask you, because you have the vantage point of investing in a company like 10 Club, and you've also invested in brands directly. You are the iconic investor investing in brands which have become big. Now, if you had to look at the opportunity and explain it to us, because we are hearing about so many of them coming up, what do you see? Like, of course, both can coexist, but where do you see the bigger opportunities and bigger outcomes as an investor? And what do you have to tell us about these models? Because they are also investing in D2C brands.
Sure. So, honestly, that will evolve. So, I can't profess to say that I have figured it out and we know exactly what the drivers or what the differences are. All I can say is that the fundamental understanding of how we see it between the two models, and of course, working very closely with Bhavna and Deepak and the team at 10 Club, is that our mission is to back entrepreneurs to build large brand stories. Therefore, each brand is based on the deep consumer insight. Each brand is based on putting a whole platform which will allow it to scale. So the model for us is like we are backing almost individual brands and expecting them to become mega successes. On the Thrasio style model, and at least the purest model that Thrasio has developed in the US, it is all about aggregation and not about individual brands. So I would say the way we interpret it is that it is almost like a category play. So if you have identified a category, let's say fitness,
Mm.
You want to bring in multiple brands in the fitness space, which are doing a reasonable size of business. They have been built by entrepreneurs up to a certain point. Can you take them by the power of aggregation, by understanding both category drivers, by better sourcing, by understanding how to leverage the depth of knowledge on marketplaces? How do you expand them into newer markets? So it's almost like micro brands being, taken, but
Yeah.
something which is far more aggregated, and therefore the benefit of that aggregation is, passed on to each brand, both on the front end as well as on the back end side. So I suspect that you will not see individual brands becoming mega brands on the Thrasio type platforms, but the categories and the overall play. And Thrasio today is talking about hundreds, if not thousands of brands on the platform. So it's really more catalogs, more categories, but still in the ethos of saying we want to be the number one ranked, the reviews and ratings on Amazon, the customer should want to buy from us. But I'm not looking to take one brand and build that into 1,000 crore brand. At least that's the way we see the difference. And I think, like you said, certainly everything will coexist. The models may even evolve over time because, we have seen some efforts being done. I think you talked about Rishi, where looking at more vertically deep plays. But I would still say that the playbook for building a standalone large brand is quite different than building an aggregation play like a Thrasio.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Uh, Kanwal, again, for all the entrepreneurs who are building in this space, when you are launching a D2C, when you're launching a brand, how should you think about it? And then this I'm talking before the product market fit. Like today, you're small, you have limited resources, you're competing, especially in consumer space, with so many brands. How should you look at launching? Should you invest in one brand and get the product market fit, or should you have, 3-4 different brands that you should launch, like house of brands, and then figure out the market? What would you suggest?
Absolutely one brand. I think there is no justification or logic for having a house of brand. You can have a house of brands once you have established certain credentials as your first brand. So, Mama Earth can say, I want to be a house of brands. But for a startup company, what you need obsessively to focus on is where is the white space? What is the consumer insight? So if you're saying, listen, I want to launch something which is in the space of skincare, and I have discovered that Ayurveda or organic or natural or some of these new age possibilities are happening. Like, let's take an example. Everybody is talking about natural, organic, Ayurveda, etc. On the other hand, there is a school of thought which says, how effective are they? So now let's say, can you find a sweet spot where you say, I have figured out that I can still be natural, organic, etc., but I can demonstrate that through trials, through validation of some form of consumer evidence, that I can be as effective, if not more, and that then becomes a winning proposition. So I'm saying finding that insight of what the consumer is looking for or what is missing in that particular space. It could be across any. People are talking of healthy snacks. Now that has become almost commodity to me. So can you give me a healthy snack which is at a similar price point to what I am eating today, and at the taste which I will not compromise on? So, there are these, almost bold statements that one can make and say, okay, what is the answer to that? So I would focus on that as my most important aspect to even conceptualize what brand or how I want to do it. Then, how do I build that brand? There are now lots of agencies who are helping companies through market research, through data analytics, through product development, packaging. There are boutique design houses which have started working with startups. So again, it's an ecosystem play, finding out what it is. I think platforms like yours already do it, but how do you encourage that ecosystem to flourish? Sorry. Yeah. And how do you get that capability to say, okay, somebody is looking for a great brand design agency, who can be the right partner, who understand working with startups? So I think these are the small basics that happen. And good news is that we are seeing it across brand after brand, that the capability and the ecosystem is evolving very, very fast on this one. So I would say just focus on that, continue to build that consumer insight, continue to build products that you can deliver to that insight. And once you get that product market fit, we are seeing that the J curve hits very, very quickly. And that's the exciting part, from almost zero sale to the 20, 30 lakhs, and then suddenly you're at a crore and more without having to, spend millions of dollars on it.
Yeah, yeah. Kanwal, we had spoken about this, but I want to ask you again, and this question, that it is very competitive today to build to stand out as a brand. While we are talking about brands, and there's huge opportunity, but it is now because of all the platforms that exist, and because of the opportunity itself, there's a huge competition, and especially we're seeing that in categories. Personal care, beauty products, everywhere. Now, as an entrepreneur with limited resources, how, and I'm asking you this question, is that how should you be thinking? You have limited resources and then you want to stand out. What are the core things? And you alluded to thinking about your narrative, your stories, but what are some of the things, essentials, that you should take care so that you stand out?
So see, first of all, design the brand, like I said earlier, in what you believe is really going to be the biggest hook for the consumer. So again, from product, from how should you, reflect that to the consumer, what kind of voice, what kind of messaging. It has to be done with a clarity or authenticity of communication and the whole brand proposition, which you truly believe that the consumer will identify and will look for. I'm saying the more effort you put into defining that brand proposition, making sure that your product, your packaging, everything answers to that, is, to me, more effort spent, the better. And it's not expensive, because it is actually, it's almost like you're crafting something. And there are individuals now who are freelancers who can help. So there is a whole ecosystem evolving. And honestly, one of the things we are trying to do, and hopefully work with partners like yourself in bringing this ecosystem together, not just for our 20, 30, 40 companies, but for the larger community. Because we think that this connect is really the starting point for the journey of a brand. So that is, to me, the first point. Second is, like I said, if you can, so interestingly, and it's not a marketing plug, but I would encourage everybody to check out our website. My partner Vinay has written a very interesting 2-part blog on how to launch a D2C brand in 6 weeks. And it actually is a step-by-step guide to what you need to do. So to answer your question, that is almost like a ready reckoner of saying, on day -42, you start with this and then this and then this. We are looking at doing similar stuff. How do you work with Amazon? How do you work with the Flipkart? How do you work with Big Basket? Because these are things which are learned by experience and working closely with these partners. But they are not IPs that we can't share, or something very unique that has come out there. But I would say, if you can focus really on, and we meet hundreds of entrepreneurs every month, and that's the first thing we are looking for, is what is your insight, and how does your brand answer to that insight that you have discovered on the consumer. Everything else we can help you with, but we cannot help you discover the insight, because that's really something which is the entrepreneur's own passion and own belief in what they are doing. So I think if you can get that insight, and very often it comes from personal experience. I mean, this is a very repeated story, but Mamaearth started because Varun and Ghazal just couldn't find products for their child who needed some special, softer, safer products for his skin. And literally, a big business got built out of that.
Yeah. Adjacent to that question is the question, you spoke about Mamaearth. Mamaearth is now looking at manufacturing, in India. And many of the brands that we've spoken to, they don't manufacture in India, and they're getting parts from Germany, and it is a little difficult to get the whole supply chain, your production and everything happening here. How do you view that? How do you view that uh, as as India is now housing, and in Brands of India, we're calling a lot of folks from the government also to see how this accelerates, the space accelerates. But I want to understand from you, do you see this as a challenge? What would you like to tell entrepreneurs? Because today one has to figure out these capabilities.
So just to the best of my knowledge, and I'm pretty sure Mamaearth has always bought from outsourced manufacturers, but always from India. So actually there is a lot of capacity and capability for personal care manufacturing in India today. I think where we are probably needing to build more muscle is electronics and semiconductors and the whole space of computers and other related products. But for personal care, food and beverages, there is enough and more capability in India. So I think the interesting thing that we are seeing, and I'll talk about the trend and then probably answer your question in that, is that a lot of these large manufacturers who are supplying to the biggest names in the industry, the Unilevers, the L'Oreals, the Colgates, they are also willing to work with you as a small startup. And again, Mamaearth is a great example because they work with some of these largest, partners who are manufacturing, and they started out when they were really, the first month of launch, the quantities were very small, they were still experimenting and so on. So there is a growing, and again, I have recently spoken to the founder and CEO of one of the largest food manufacturing company. They have also got into personal care, and they have actually set up a separate division with a senior vice president as head of that to work with startups. So that is really the big trend that is happening. And they also realize that, because they are churning out millions of units for the large players, the same team, the same business cannot handle a startup's requirement because you need smaller quantities. You need to really, launch fast. You don't have the luxury of, long timelines, and then you have to keep moving. So I would say focus is really on building this ecosystem of manufacturing. And that's where the government comes in. That's where, lots of these incentives start operating because the manufacturers are also realizing that, this is where the growth is coming. Yeah. So I have a stable business which caters to, and packaging suppliers. I can't tell you how many large and probably the largest players in every aspect of the manufacturing supply chain are talking to us saying, how can we work with your companies? And not always Mamaearth and Boat. People are looking to work with the smaller players because they also see the kind of growth we are, expecting in the space. So first of all, I would say unless, typically in food and beverages, we have seen there is more in-house manufacturing which happens. So whether it's Yoga Bar, whether it's Vadam, whether it's Paper Boat, whether it's ID, all of them have, set up their own production plants. Personal care, most of it is outsourced. So that is one, I would say, trend that is happening. But to me, more important than manufacturing yourself is how do you find the right partners who can give you smaller quantities, who can be your, Tasty Tales is one of our small companies. We are working with literally on the same floor where on one side ITC is being produced and one side liver is being produced. So that is really the biggest, I would say, positive that has started happening in India. And I hope, with all the focus on manufacturing and make it India that the government and the Prime Minister is talking about, that can be further enhanced.
Yeah. Kanwal, what you're saying is that today everyone is willing to participate and participating in the startup story, and brands like Mamaearth and all of them are showing the way. Now, I have a question to you, and I think I've asked you this before, but we are land of Ayurveda. We are land of khadi, the textile that we have, the handloom stuff that we have, the handicraft stuff that we have. When will we see Indian brands and especially these, because we have you go to any state and we have such variety from in any category. When will we see local Indian brands go global? And when will we have very successful Indian consumer brands?
I have already promised you that we're going to see. Yeah. So again, the paradigm shift there is really the whole digital infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because building brands from India in the traditional retail markets anywhere in the world is obviously far, far tougher. So therefore, the possibility of leveraging platforms like Amazon, and I must say again, in a very honest admission, I find the focus and the amount of effort Amazon is making in helping Indian brands go global is amazing. And I talk to that team on a very regular basis. They have had programs, they have had competitions, so they are doing a lot of stuff to facilitate Indian brands to leverage the global network of Amazon. And I think they have a target, which I think Jeff Bezos gave them last year, to do $10 billion of export from India, which is, even more, propelling the whole activity. But honestly, if you ask me, there is a significant attraction to Indian and Indianness. So we have a tea brand, Vadam, which is now scaled to a level of somewhere in the region of 200 crores, entirely selling in global markets. We have a company called Ayurveda Experience, which is of a similar size, which is also selling now on global markets on their own platform. So this is one of those examples of a D2C brand out of India selling through their own website and building a large franchise for Ayurveda and Ayurvedic products. We have Slurp Farm, which has recently launched in Middle East and in UK and looking at other markets. So I think that trend is starting to happen and will accelerate because the digital channels allow you a much faster access to consumer. But again, one of the things that we are trying to do, as much as we have spent time and effort in India, is to do the same discovery of what works. What is the playbook for being on Amazon, on Etsy, on Walmart, on your own D2C channels. And each market is so complex, so different that you have to really understand what is that consumer insight. Why is that consumer buy my product? So the game plan does not change. You have to put a lot of focus, and hopefully over the next few years we are also starting to discover some ecosystem partners who understand some of these aspects and who are helping work with startups and take them forward. So I would say watch the space. I want to see something mega built out of India in the next 5 years. That's my commitment to myself.
And to all the entrepreneurs who are watching this is an opportunity, and reach out to Kanwal if you are thinking, of course, if you're building D2C in India, but of course, if you're looking to go global. Kanwal, you've talked about Amazon. And again, my question, Amazon, Walmart, Etsy, are these the platforms, or as a brand today, I want to go directly? And you talked about one of your brands which have directly gone to international markets. What should be the thinking? What should be the approach?
See, again, Amazon is a easier, softer landing, if I may, because they help you with understanding the logistics, the warehousing, the regulatory aspects. So they have partners who can help you navigate that. And there is some element of, understanding of how do you work with Amazon, because Amazon is only helping you access those markets. So I would say that the softer landing is always going to be these platforms. So I mean, like Amazon, I'm sure Walmart will have similar, plans, and hopefully this whole Walmart Flipkart integration will allow similar possibilities there as well. But again, it's not an either or. And we have discovered that with our companies. So Vadam again started out with Amazon. It was only Amazon. Today Amazon is less than 50%. So they have set up their own website. They are even doing some offline through some of the larger retail chains. So honestly, to me, it is an evolution. Even in India, most companies will look at omni-channel or multi-channels as they grow the brand, as the consumers start adopting them, and as efficiencies across the system start happening. There is no reason for you not to be on one or the other channel. But I would say, from a very practical aspect, Amazon is a easy, starting point. But obviously, they have millions of SKUs. So again, figuring out how do you get salience and how do you get discovered. And again, your product has to have that ability as a brand and the offering to be able to stand out. You can argue what was so special about Darjeeling tea that Vadam, was successful. So, there's a whole backstory to that and how he did it and how the brand love got built. And that's really the most important aspect, not by just putting a branded Darjeeling tea on Amazon.
Yeah. Okay. If one can have a long conversation on this, and then this is to your last answer. You know, if as an entrepreneur, if I have to build a brand today, and let's take the most, I don't know which one is the most competitive space, but maybe Mama Earth, right? Because if and I mentioned last time that you go to Amazon, you have Mama Earth vitamin C, and then you have 100 other brands offering vitamin C serum, right, at different price points. It is hard. How do you what are two three things specific that one should do to continue to stand out? Because you might have a standout product, but you have to stay ahead of the curve. How do you do that?
It's back to the same point, Shraddha. I think ultimately it's your connect with the consumer at a brand level. So because it is Mama Earth, I trust it. Because it is Mama Earth, I believe that this will be the brand of choice for me. Because it is Mama Earth, I'm willing to give it the benefit of doubt to try something new from the house of Mama. The more commodity category or the more competitive category is where boat operates.
Yeah.
So, I'll give you an interesting example, which is quite a dramatic example. They are known for audio headsets, right? All the wireless headphones and stuff like that. They launched trimmers, and it was a different brand name. I think it's called Misfit, and they launched trimmers on Flipkart as an exclusive launch, and they had 10,000 units, which I think got sold in 2 minutes. And because there is no history of them being in the trimmer market. But the main refrain there was that because it is boat, I trust them. And I would buy other products from boat because my experience with boat has been so good and I identify with what boat stands for. So again, I'm reiterating this again and again. And, we grew up in the world of levers. So, we were drilled this message from day one, that brand and the emotional connect you build with the consumer trumps everything else. Not to say your product should be substandard, not to say that you take liberties with that, but product can be matched. Vitamin C is no big deal.
Yeah.
But it's really that, I believe that, there is a certain brand ethos here. It cares for me. When they say all natural, they will be all natural. Even simple things like that. That's where the brand trust comes in.
Yeah. Okay, now I'll take some questions which are coming in. Well, there are a lot of questions. You've addressed this. Should brands focus on marketplaces like Amazon or on their own website? I think that was addressed, but you want to take that, Kanwal? But you answered that in the beginning, right?
Yeah. I think we can move on.
Yeah. What is your view on building big D2C brands for commodity-based, low-margin FMCG businesses like edible oils?
See, everything can be sold as a brand. Like I said, the trust that you have. And I grew up in the world of dalda, right? That was the vanaspati oil for 100 years. So I would say that the opportunity is there across every category to disrupt. It can be a disruption on business model. It can be a disruption on product, or it can be a disruption on some unique innovation that you have managed to build, which nobody else has. Only thing that we find is for commodity categories, you are competing head on very often with the big players. So you need deep pockets, you need different level of conversation with the right consumer. You can still build, so you can say, I will build a high-end cooking oil brand which comes with the best ingredients and whatever is the latest, the olive oils and so on and so forth. That is absolutely a right strategy for a digital first brand. But if you say, I want to build a large mega brand directly competing with every player in the market, again, if you have that insight and why you think yours is a superior offering, both as brand and as product, you can do it. But it's just going to require a lot of capital. So as an investor, we would stay away from it, but not to say there's no opportunity.
Okay. Shruti has a question. Our brand has a product that is global. Pet furniture. What are the chances an investor in India focusing on wellness, beauty, and FMCG products would be interested in funding us?
Pet furniture?
Yeah, pet furniture.
See, again, I would look for, so we invest in Indian brands going global. So from a thesis point of view, there is nothing here which doesn't form as part of our overall model. What I would want to understand, obviously, is what differentiates you from everything else. Because this is not something which you can argue has an Indian-ness to it. So maybe our limited bias is that if it is something which is Indian spices, Indian fabric, Indian Indian fitness forms like yoga, Ayurveda. Those are the easier ones to understand because you say that okay, from the land of Ayurveda, and there's a story there. What is the story behind pet furniture? I mean, is it just the design? Is it cheaper? Is it something very unique you're doing? And once that is understood, and obviously the market is huge, then I think that's a conversation which one can have. Because otherwise, to say that I can build a better pet furniture brand out of India while there is enough and more happening there in a very competitive market, that's the question you have to answer for yourself, Shruti. And then, as an investor, we should talk about it. And happy to talk.
Okay. So this is from anonymous attendee and a very interesting question. We are a bootstrap company doing decent in terms of sales and growth. Our competitors are constantly raising and growing 3x, 5x every year. What would you advise? One of our competitor is funded by you.
I mean, this is like a puzzle, right? So I don't know what the category is. I don't know what the business is. Again, so my answer will be very, very generic. So I'll refrain from just.
Yeah. So this is a long question, but I'm reading the part. How do you get consumers to pay more for quality, or would you say absorb the loss or lower margin to build customer loyalty?
See, we have seen in almost all our brands that they are able to command a premium if your value proposition is appropriate for that consumer's specific need. Whether you take Mama Earth was never selling below, say, Johnson & Johnson when they launched their range of products. So what is it that you're offering for that price which the consumer is going to pay extra for, given that you are a lesser known brand and given that you have a harder job of convincing the consumer? So if you are saying I am using a certain type of ingredients, or I have a certain technology, or there is something in your offering which you can convince the consumer, saying that I am genuinely getting much more value for a little extra price. See, eventually it's about value as much as it is for price. So if you're telling me that I can give you an all natural product which does the same performance and it's going to really work well for you, I have to convince you that that is the case, and I'm going to charge you a 20% premium. People are paying for it. So I think the value prop is really the real story. And why should I believe you that you have a better value? When you say better quality, to me that really doesn't connote what is better quality. So you have to probably go one step further into that.
That's a very nice question by Rajiv Subhani. If you consider 20-30 lakhs month as an early stage startup, how do you classify startups at 1 lakh or lesser? Any specific funds who support startups at this stage?
So again, what we have seen is there are funds which have come up now, which are micro VC. So I would quote, for example, Sauce VC. I know, there is Hukum Capital. There are a few players who are willing to come in at a startup stage at the concept itself. And again, Sauce, since I know Manu, I can tell you that he has done deals even on concept stage. So first of all, there is a VC side to it. Like second point, as I said, if you have a very, very exciting idea with the product, I'm assuming that you can invest some amount of money to reach that 1 lakh. So you have done the heavy lifting of creating the product, creating the brand, having a proposition, putting it in the market and getting a 1 lakh of sale. Let's say that is the table stakes. Now you have to find the right partner who thinks that one can become 20, 30 and then can become 1 crore and whatever it is. we are finding a lot of platforms like Let's Venture, like Angel List, who are now helping some of these type of businesses to actually go and raise the smaller amounts of money. There is always the larger angel community, which is very, very interested. So, every company we are seeing today has some form of funding which they have raised from angel investors. So if you have the conviction of what you are doing, and that 1 lakh sale is that 1 lakh sale should not be by just dropping price and giving it free to consumers. Again, I'm being frivolous here, but that's not the idea. The 1 lakh sale has to demonstrate that there is one small segment of consumers who have bought you, and there is some positive, feedback on that. I think there is money available to do it, and you don't need that much of money at that stage, because most companies have taken 50 lakhs, 1 crore, that range of monies, and taken the business to 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs a month. And why we come to 20, 30 lakhs is not because we think 1 lakh is the wrong number. It's just that for the size of fund we have and where we think we bring most value is in really helping businesses which have reached that 30, 40 lakh of revenue to the next stage. So it's really our choice of stage, which is the benchmark here, and not any belief that 1 lakh is not a good starting point.
Yeah. Akshat has a question. We're currently in talks with Target in USA to list our brand with them on Target.com, a first for a baby brand in India. With limited capital as a bootstrapped company, do you think it is better to focus on the Indian market first, or to focus our efforts on developing the Target opportunity?
See, again, question is, what is the product and value proposition? If you are able to attract somebody like Target to allow you to list on their site, and they have done their diligence, then I'm saying it sounds like a very interesting opportunity. And this is a debate we have with a lot of our companies, is it more India, more global? If you already have something with Target.com, which is signed up, and you think you can get some value there, then I would say at least develop that forward, because there is something concrete on the ground which you can build on. And if you can demonstrate that it works for a certain audience and people are willing to pay dollar prices for it, first of all, economically, that's a much better model for you, because you will certainly, make much better margin and so on. And second is, I feel that if there is something so unique that a very crowded and very heavily branded markets in the US, especially in the baby space, is you have a niche there, then coming to India might actually be an easier opportunity.
Yeah. Raman has this question. India lacks a sportswear or shoes brand in the D2C category. How do you see the segment?
So we have actually invested in this space with a brand called Asani. And I think COVID has been a bit of a dampener for the space. So honestly, right now, people are still trying to discover the path back to, getting some mojo back. I buy your intuition. I think there is a space there because after the Nikes and the Adidas and Pumas, really no brand has been able to come in with a very high value, the boat of that space, if I may. So I would say certainly the space itself is very exciting. We did see some headwinds because of COVID. And that's why, at least we are not seeing that many new opportunity coming out at this point of time. But if you have a value proposition, and if you understand that space, see, the thing is, it's a technical product. It's not so easy to build a shoe which is performance and which can, especially if you're looking at, competing with the bigger players, because even if somebody is buying a cheaper shoe, they don't want to have, ankle pain, knee pain, joint pains. So if you understand the technicality and you can build a product which is, at the right price and at the right thing, I think that market is there. And again, online will be an interesting, channel to do it, because a lot of consumers are now buying footwear online as well.
So many questions. I don't know if I can take all the questions. So I'm telling all of you, maybe we'll send it to him and he can answer and send it back. But Mamta has a question. For a D2C fashion brand that has reached the 40-50 lakhs per month mark, we're struggling to scale up to 1 crore. What are your thoughts? Spending more on performance marketing is not giving us profitable results.
I think we can take it directly. Who's the person?
Mamta Gupta.
Mamta, can you write to us, please?
Yeah.
Well, 30-40 lakhs is a deal for us, so we should talk.
Yeah, it's 40, 50 lakhs. Yeah.
I don't know the category enough to really comment, but if you can give us more detail, then at least we can share some insights with you.
Bharat Krishnamachari has a question. As a fitness and tech industry player, which is a better approach towards reaching the audience? Develop network and social platform, or D2C sale of tech hardware and let network and platform growth follow?
So it's not an either or in any case.
Yeah.
So if you are, see, I think the whole idea of building a social platform and building the consumer connect has to be done to build your brand. This is the substitute for the the press and the television and whatever else we were doing in our lever days 20 years ago. So I don't think that choice is materially different from how you are selling it on what channels. Now, D2C makes sense. Like I said, if you have a story which the consumer needs to engage and needs to understand, Amazon and Flipkarts are the easier ways of getting started. So again, it's really most brands that we know are finding Amazon and Flipkart as an easier point of start. But a lot of them are starting to understand the power of a D2C vehicle as well. And again, if I have to give you thumb rules, some of our brands, even at the large and the medium scale, so I won't take just startups because they're still discovering, 20 to 30% business will be D2C, and 60, 70, sometimes even more will be e-commerce. So, but I think the brand building part through social channels is anyway a requirement. So maybe I'm not understanding the question properly, but it's...
Yeah, but you're saying it's not either or. Yeah. Vipin Sani has a question. We are an incense startup and doing 15, 16 lakhs per month currently. At this stage, should we be focused on revenue or profitability? What is the stage when we can approach investors for funding?
See, we have actually looked at the space and we are still not getting the sense of the size of the market. So that would be my main. If it is still a limited size of market, and especially distribution is the main lever and online is going to be tougher to build. Again, I don't know the category. I'm just making up some assumptions here. Then I would say plan a more, steady growth. Don't give up on profitability, because the bigger picture has to be understood a little better. But if you believe that, the market is really opening up and there are some clear levers of why the market is opening up, then I think you have to make that case to an investor. The size of the business will certainly be interesting for investors, as long as you can show me how the path from that 15 lakhs to where it can go.
Yeah.
But my own intuition is that it is still, both from distribution, from the complexity of how the product is made and overall size of market, that may be the question which investors would be uncomfortable with. So you have to answer those questions.
Yeah. It's the conviction that you have to bring, like you said earlier in your question about how do you choose investment. So Anusha has a question. Anusha Stephen, she is asking, what do you think of the kids category? Don't see too many people investing in this, even though it has huge potential. Why is there so much hesitancy?
We love the kid category. If you have a portfolio, we have Mamaearth, we have Slurp Farm, we have Magic Grid, we have 91 Cycles. So we have tried to cover, except for fashion, and we are looking at a few choices there as well. We have covered pretty much every aspect of kids category. We believe that that is a very, very interesting space right now in India. Nuclear families, typically parents working, want to spend more on the child. There's a guilt feeling that, don't get enough time with the baby. So let's, indulge. And, the whole role of wellness and, best for the child. So I don't know why you feel that there is not enough activity happening there. I would say kids is the hottest market right now.
So Abhiraj has an interesting question. Going back to 10 Club or Mensa, these businesses have raised on concept stage or pre-business. Are there specific indicators a VC looks for that stage of investment?
That's a trick question. Honestly, the money that they are raising is because of a global model that seems to have worked well. I think everything else is in discovery. So I would say that, while we are very much part of 10 Club and we believe what they are doing, the concept of what they are doing is really what we are investing, and the team which we believe can execute, which is very, non-conventional for somebody like us. Like I said, our sweet spot is see the product in market, see the execution, see the consumer metrics, and do it. So we are also, looking at this space from the lens of saying, here is a model which has worked internationally. India again has a very large number of resellers. Can that aggregation work? And because we ourselves have worked with Amazon and Flipkart and other players so closely, we know that that aggregation idea has potential. So it's both our understanding of the ecosystem and the team that we found in Bhavna and Deepak and Joel that we are backing. But I would say still the space has to be proven. So right now the money is being raised to allow them to prove it. One large investor once used the term born as an adult. To buy certain categories of businesses need to start with large checks. And I think this is one of those. And, I saw Licious as one of those, where you had no choice but to keep raising more money, even though it's a classic consumer business, unlike every other business, whether it's Mama, Boat, Kapiva, Yoga.
Yeah. What is your thesis on the budding hemp and cannabis industry in India?
Not yet. No thesis yet. Looking at it, honestly, it's a buzzword. It's a huge market internationally. But we haven't studied it enough, so I won't venture in making an opinion here. Sorry about that.
God of Mithil has a question. We sell leather accessories in India and internationally. The primary source of getting sales is through running ads on FB, IG, Google. But this has become a hamster wheel. The more money we put into the ads, the more we sell. Sometimes at a loss because the cost of ads is not always set. Is there a way to grow without just being dependent on ads?
Are they selling or, sorry, it's Gaurav with it? What's the name?
Yeah, God of Mithil, yes.
Yeah. Gaurav, are you selling on some of these other platforms as well? Because clearly D2C is going to be expensive. And second is, are you getting any form of repeat consumer? Because typically, most of the companies are finding that getting revenue through the ads on Facebook and Google and all, the first purchase is always going to lose money. And I think that's a reality. But several of them are starting to see some LTVs with long-term value numbers starting to shape up. So if you have a range of product which people are willing to buy again and again goes back to brand, again goes back to product, then that's one analysis that you may want to do and see if what is the frequency of purchase of the consumer of the category that you have, the same person is buying, if they are buying again and if they are not. And second, I would certainly say is the marketplaces, if you have that kind of a product differentiation. But but I think the challenge I see is that it's not a category which has too much of repeat unless your products are so exciting that you keep buying more and more as a repertoire.
Some of you have asked the question, will we get the recording? Yes, you will have the recording of this, and everything that Kanwaljit has spoken will be there, transcribed, and the video will be out. How do we scale up an artisan? Meghashri is asking, how do we scale up an artisan chocolate brand with limited investment? You're like the brand guru. You're asking every. And thanks, Kanwal, for taking out time, because I'm sure this helps.
My pleasure. See, again, this is a tough one. To be honest, I'll have to think this a little deeper, because chocolate is a category which is also sensitive to temperature, which selling online, again, logistics becomes a little complicated. So I have not looked at chocolate specifically as an investment thesis. So I'm just reacting more from a consumer's lens here. I think the biggest value that you probably have is the product itself here. Because if it is artisanal, if it is something which is so good, then I think there is a story there. Is it through more direct conversation with consumers? The other very interesting development, I didn't talk about that at all, so maybe I can spend 2 minutes on that, is this whole emergence of what we are calling quick commerce. So what the Swiggy and the Grofers and the Zomatos are doing, what Big Basket is getting into, what every e-commerce player is going to do is this 20-minute, 30-minute delivery from their own dark stores. So maybe that's an option to consider, because that could allow, some of the impulse aspect of it. I think gifting is an area which is clearly, up your alley and can become. But honestly, as a category, it's a little sensitive category. If your product is really good, then I would say getting more and more trials is really the answer. We have a recently invested in a company. Again, caveat, is not a marketing plug. It's called Smitten, SMYTTEN. They are a sampling platform. So maybe you want to look at that and see if you can try some form of sampling. I feel that for very high indulgence, gourmet type of products, sampling is a very, very powerful way of getting consumer access. So it will be D2C is my feeling. I'm assuming you have very high margins in this category, so you can afford to build a D2C brand. But trials is the answer in my view, if you ask me.
So Kanwal, this question for you, very interesting. Would you invest in a company which is a competitor to your already invested portfolio companies? If not, then should we not approach VCs who are investing in us in similar spaces categories?
So if it is a direct competitor, we won't. I think that is unfair to both our existing company and to the new company. And no matter how. So what happens is the dilemma happens is when we have invested in a company which is in a different space and wants to get into an area which is related to something else that we are already invested in. So we normally avoid direct overlaps. When we say personal care and beauty, if you see our portfolio, we have navigated that. But tomorrow if Mamaearth wants to launch an Ayurveda range, we can't tell Mamaearth not to launch because we have another company. So we try and put Chinese walls through board directors and so on and so forth. But it's a tricky one, and especially for a fund like us, which only does consumer brands, it gets even trickier. But I would say, by and large, I would not recommend you taking money from a VC who's got a directly competing brand, because their own, if your brand does better, then they will probably put more focus with you and abandon the other one, or vice versa. So it's just not healthy.
Yeah. Surbhi Gupta has a question. We are bootstrapped. We are manufacturing health drink mix like turmeric latte and ragi drink mix. We want to make our brand as D2C, but we have very limited financial sources for marketing. How can we spend the money in right manner?
So again, I would say this one, certainly, the marketplaces could be interesting because there is a differentiation in your product. And therefore discovery on an Amazon becomes more interesting. So again, talking to them, understanding limited money, but spending it directly on Amazon for advertising and more for discovery versus spending it on Facebook or Google. That could be one low-hanging fruit for you. Again, trials is the other big one. So there are other platforms than Smitten, so I won't keep plugging Smitten. But yeah, I think anything which is unique and where the first whatever experience that a consumer has can convert them into a loyal consumer. That to me is perfectly aligned for a trial story. And typically in most of these categories, the margins are very attractive. So trial can be affordable. If you're selling for 100 rupees and your cost is only 30, then you can try more at a 30 rupee spend rather than advertising spend. So I would say that might be the right formula.
Anusha Ramesh has a question. Which all business functions should be kept in-house and which all functions can be outsourced?
So, manufacturing, like I said, is typically being outsourced in most cases. And I think there is enough and more now, quality and capability, which is allowing for that. I would say performance marketing in the beginning, doing it with experts from the outside who understand the technicalities of it makes sense. But eventually you will have to bring it in-house, because especially if you're doing D2C, because there is so much of nuance to it that you need to do it. I would say, obviously, the whole brand and the brand development piece, you need to very closely be involved in. So again, if you're working with consultants or working with senior marketing resources, ultimately it should be your brand, your voice, how you're doing it. But and product development, again, how you own it. So technically you can outsource every piece of it, but still keep the soul of it in-house. I mean, I know brands which have done everything with partners, but eventually, it's really the product and the brand around the product, which is the core of what business you are in, and you have to do it in-house.
Your thesis on kitchenware in India, no bets have been taken by Fireside in this sector.
Looking very actively. So if there is somebody who has some ideas, please talk to us, because we believe that is again a space highly ripe for disruption.
You have to call this out. We need, Murthy is saying we need Kanwaljit Singh services. How do we reach out to him? We will connect. We will, and then of course you can go to his website and get the details. And he's on the social platforms. Many people have thanked, but so now should I take more? But we are at 5:16, and you've spoken for 1 hour 20 minutes now. So with this, many of them are thanking you, Kanwal, because thank you. This means a lot to the, this is supporting the ecosystem, and in all the answers that you've given will help a lot more who have asked questions. But most of the questions are coming that you sell directly or through marketplaces. How do you build loyalty? And you'll get a lot of insights in the conversation that we've had. Yeah.
So, Shraddha, what we'll do is, it's giving me some flavor of what the challenges are. And I think this Amazon versus D2C and what is the right, balance and the right formula. I think we will do some work with my team, and we will try and publish some information and some of our learnings, and maybe even some how-to playbook type of stuff for the larger community, because I'm seeing. So do check out our D2C playbook. I think there is some very valuable, simple, tips to go D2C, but we haven't yet published too much on the marketplace side, and I think we should do that and answer this question at a broader level. Yeah.
And we'll pick it up from your website and put it on your story in Brands of India, because we're building the resource, so we'll put it up there with due credit.
No, seriously, check out the D2C playbook. I think it's a 2-year effort, and again, we have no vested interest. It's not that we need any whatever IP rights for it. We just want to help the community. But I'm finding that it's not just that one piece; it should be a combination, and I think we need to address that second part as well.
Yeah, no, and I know what to call out, and people would have, whoever has watched this, will be watching this, will know, Kanwal, how genuinely you are invested and interested in helping entrepreneurs, and not just your portfolio companies. And I told this to you earlier. I met him 11 years back when nobody knew nothing about me or your story, and he gave a meeting. That time also he was a hotshot VC and in other fund, and he gave a meeting. So there is a huge interest and love to help entrepreneurs, and thank you for that. Thank you for taking out time, because I know this is your time is very, very precious and valuable. This is very helpful. And for all of you, please come on 17th of September at Brands of India. This is a movement, and we're roping in Kanwal to help us to build this Brands of India movement here in India. Thank you, Kanwal. This has been very, very special, very useful, very meaningful, and everyone will agree with me.
My pleasure. Thanks, Shraddha, and all the best. I think this is such a great initiative, and whatever we can do to help build Brands of India is really a mission for us.
Thank you. We are counting on you, because you are, to me, in India, grand doyen, then you'll say old career. You are the person who has pushed brands in the country and the young brands. Thank you.
So much more to do. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.